Hey there, and welcome back to Indie Author Blueprint. I'm your host, Michelle Rayburn, and today we're diving into something that might sound technical at first, but don't worry, I'm going to make it simple if I can. We're talking about alt text images for your ebook. First, what is alt text? Well, alt is short for alternative, so this is alternative text, and it's basically a caption for people who can't see your pictures. Imagine reading your book out loud to a friend over the phone. If you got to an image, you would naturally pause and say something like, there's a picture that shows a chart for sales growth over time, or there's a photo of a little girl holding a balloon. It's a short verbal explanation. That's the alt text. It's the behind the scenes description attached to an image so that a screen reader, like software that reads a book out loud for people who are blind or visually impaired, can tell them what the picture shows. Without alt text, the screen reader just says image, and the reader misses out completely. Now, why does alt text matter and why are we talking about it now? Well, I have noticed in the latest ebooks that I've uploaded that there's a question now on KDP asking if there's alt text assigned to the images. Now, a lot of the images that are included in an ebook might be decorative, like it's just a scene break or something like that. So you wouldn't be adding alt text to that because it doesn't really have anything important to say. But it matters for us to label the important images because accessibility is the number one reason. Alt text ensures that readers with low or no vision can still access the same information as everyone else. And this goes for emails too. If you're sending e-blasts out or you're using a platform that helps you, like a client relations software that helps you communicate with people. A lot of those now are giving you a place to put alt text in with your images. And it's important to put that description because that actually helps to legitimize your email when it's going through all those places it goes before it gets to your inbox. So you want to make sure that you're using it there too. But in KDP, they're now asking if it's on your ebooks. And this is as of June 28, especially 2025, because that is now a legal requirement in Europe. So if you uploaded an ebook before and you didn't see that option there before, it's been added because of new regulations. If you're releasing your book and it's going worldwide, then it may not meet compliance standards in some places. And so that's why they're asking if it's included. As indie authors, we talk a lot about reaching a wide audience. And when we think about accessibility, then it helps us to literally open the doors wider for more people to have access to our content and have a meaningful experience with it too. So beyond the legal side, there's the reader experience. Alt text helps to make it readable in read aloud formats, even in Braille through assistive technology. So it's not just about following rules, it's really about giving your audience the best possible experience. Now, when you're working with software, I'll get at the end here and give you a couple of tips for how you can do this. But first, let's talk about how you write the alt text for your book. This is something where I sometimes get kind of lazy when I'm working on emails and stuff. And I know that I'm working on having more meaningful text and not just something there that says picture of a man. So first, let's break it down into some simple steps. First, we need to identify the meaningful images. Not every single image needs alt text. So ask yourself, does this picture provide information, context, or add to the story? If the answer is yes, then it needs a description. So let's say I include a photo of my family because I'm writing a book that's talking about my family. I might say that it's a picture of the author's family. So that's something that they wouldn't want to just have it say image because it might be helpful to know it was a picture of the author's family. You could go into describing it a little bit more. So the second tip here is to write concise and descriptive text. You want to keep it short and clear and imagine yourself describing it quickly to somebody else over the phone. But you want to include enough detail so that it's meaningful. So here's a couple of examples. A chart showing rising sales might be described as a line graph showing steady sales growth from 2019 to 2025. Or an author headshot might be photo of Michelle Rayburn smiling in front of a bookshelf. So it's not just photo of Michelle Rayburn, that's me. It might give a little context of what's there. An illustration in a children's book, this one's definitely more meaningful because these illustrations tell the story too. So you might say something like a cartoon of a brown dog chasing a red ball across the grass. So if that's part of telling the story, you want to make that meaningful. So you can skip then the decorative images. If an image like a flourish or a border or just something like before, like on every title page, you don't have to do that. In fact, you can tell the software to ignore it, and that way it won't say anything there in a reader. And then the thing you want to do is make sure that you use real text whenever possible when you're creating a book. And what this means is if you're inserting something decorative, which I know in the past I've done this with some of the pull quotes when I couldn't get them to behave the way I wanted them to, I would just do a image of the pull quote, because really when a pull quote is a quote taken out of the main text and then just included for decorative purposes, basically. And so I would just mark those as decorative because the text is actually in the book and we don't really need to have that image marked. But let's imagine if I was trying to do the title of the chapter and I wanted it to be super decorative. So I just created it like in Canva or something like that. And then I put that image in with the text on the image. But now the reader doesn't know that the title is part of that picture I put in there. So it just says image and then it moves into the chapter. Well, that's not very helpful. So you want to use real text for your chapter title and make sure that your images, if there are words included, that they're decorative and that text is already on your page somewhere. And so it doesn't matter. Now the image becomes decorative. So whenever there are words that are key to the story or key to the book, they have to be in the paragraph or the text or the heading, not in an image. I hope that helps to make that clear. Now, alt text might feel like one of those behind the scenes technical details, but really it's storytelling in another form. And so it's making sure that every reader, whether they're seeing your book with their eyes or hearing it with their ears or reading it through Braille, gets the full experience that you intended. So the next time you prepare your manuscript for upload to KDP or another platform, I encourage you to think about, what does your software that you're using to create your book require of you? How do you do this? And I'll give you an example here in a second of a couple of them. But I encourage you to start thinking that way. For me, it's been designing my own books and other people's. It's not been something I've thought about as intentionally. And so now I'm thinking about that more in the creation process of how do I mark these images so that it's compliant. Okay, I said I would give a few practical examples, and I will include some of this in the show notes, but not all of it. Some of it will just be for paid subscribers to see it, but I'll give you a quick rundown. Here's an example. If you're using Kindle Create, which is the free program from KDP to create eBooks, then you can select an image that's on your page and you can click the inspector icon in the toolbar and you can open the inspector panel. And there's a box where you can do an image description or alternative text, and you can put in that concise text that gives you the same information as people would need to know if they're reading the page. And so in the show notes, I'll give you those specifics and type that up for the paid subscribers and give these tips as well. And if you're using something like Adobe InDesign, which is what I do, all of the ebooks I do for myself and for my clients in, there are ways in the object export options to assign that alt text to each image. So you can do a custom one for each image. For purely decorative images, then there's a way to mark them as an artifact. And so that keeps them from being read by screen readers. So those are two examples. If you're using other programs to create your ebook, you need to do some research and figure out how to mark your images. They're all including that now in order to be compliant. So if this is something you've never thought about before, I encourage you to start thinking about adding alt text to the images in your ebook. Obviously, it doesn't matter if you're including them in a print book because there's no screen reader using that. They're different. That's not something you can do. So this is purely for the people who are making ebooks as part of your publishing process. If you found this helpful, I'd love it if you'd share this podcast with another friend or share it with your designer to help them get familiar with what you're asking from them. If they've never had to do this before, go ahead and share it with them, and it'll help them to understand why they need to start doing that as well. Until next time, keep up with your writing and your publishing and building that author business with purpose. If you're looking for other episodes of Indie Author Blueprint, you'll find those on Substack. So I encourage you to just go over to Substack and search for Indie Author Blueprint. Become a follower or even a paid subscriber if you want some of that extra content there. I post things about the publishing process for indie authors. So if that's you, I would love to have you join us there for getting helpful information every week in your inbox or on the Substack app. Thanks for listening and have a great day.